Hey everyone, this is Pig for Life, and we're doing a Toy Dojo sponsored review for Bullsfire's DB-01 Airstrike, their version of Masterpiece Swoop. And this is their first foray into the third-party Transformer scene. And just a spoiler alert, I'm actually quite impressed with this guy for a first attempt. And overall, I think the figure is really nice and solid. So we're not going to be able to do a packaging review since this is the final colored test shot, but we'll go ahead and go right into robot review. But before we get started, I did want to just say that a colored test shot does come with its fair share of caveats. So this review is not a full toy review. It does look very final. These should be the final colors. This should be the final design and transformation and overall molding, but there are going to be some improvements and final tweaks that are probably going to be made prior to this actually being released. But this should give you a very good idea of what Bullsfire has in stock. Alright, so let's go ahead and do a robot review. We'll take a look at his front, the side, the back with all this chromed out wing action and feet. Go to the other side, which you can't see very well. Let me move that out of the way. And then back to the front. And I'm going to start off with his head sculpt because looking into the eyes of this figure will give you an idea of the soul, or the spark in this case, of the figure. So taking a good look, one of the first things that I caught was that his head looks small. And it is deceivingly small. The head itself here, like the whole red piece, is actually quite large, and I think it's a really good size. Unfortunately, the face portion comes out twice, so there's another black head portion, and then the forehead portion is even smaller with the cheek pieces, and then even on the inside where you actually start seeing the painted face is yet again thinner. So it makes the head look quite small in order to get it in here. So I wish that they could do a little bit something that allowed the head to be, or at least the face to be a little bit bigger. That said, I always thought of Swoop as being the smallest and kind of lankiest, I suppose, the thinnest. So it really depends. The things about the face, which are my opinions, are that this kind of cheek piece here, or cheek guard, is kind of weird. And I think the eyes are a little too big. But other than that, I think they did a good job. The paint apps are really good. The design to let it actually fit in the alt mode head is quite nice. So let's zoom out and get into some articulation. So he does have a ball jointed head, which is also on a separate hinge. His neck joint is on a separate hinge that allows him to go back and forward, and also down, obviously, for transformation, but does give you additional range of motion in addition to his nicely ball jointed head. So he does that head bobbing, nice up, and he can look all the way down, obviously. Okay. We'll go into his upper body. His arms are nicely ratcheted, and they're very similar to the Seekers, the Hasbro Seekers, in how they're designed. And this upper body itself, it takes a lot of cues from that, and we'll do some comparisons later. He does have an upper bicep swivel. He does have double jointed elbows that give him a great range of motion. His wrists are on a post, which is kind of unfortunate. Whenever I mess with the hands, they actually pop off because it's just on a small post. The ones from Hasbro actually have a pin that connects them, which is a lot more solid, and they don't fall off. The fingers are articulated, so let's see if we can show them off. The thumb is on a ball joint, and the fingers are articulated. It's really it's one, from what I can tell, one solid piece on this joint. So these, but then each of these fingers from the second knuckle are individually articulated, as you can see here. I might be wrong, it might just be really tight, but I believe that's the case here. And you can make a fist with that as well. Okay. He does have some motion with his fist to go in, but that's really for transformation. And again, that's one of the design points I think they should fix with future releases, to not just have that small post connecting the hand. As far as the waist, there actually is some waist articulation, which is kind of deceiving because there's a whole backpack piece, which is one solid piece, which you would think would restrict it. But there is some slight articulation. The way to actually make use of it is to unpeg the chest panels, and you can get the head out, the alt mode head out, and you'll see that there is some amount of articulation. Very slight, but it is there. And so that gives you some options if you want to pull the beak out a little bit and get them into a slightly turned positions. But again, you just have to make sure that you unpeg the beak from these chest pieces here and then pull the beak out slightly. So there is some. As far as the legs go, this entire hip joint is on one piece, which is really unfortunate because these dino legs are attached as well. So even though you get a good amount of motion forward, you get 90 degrees, all this leg act piece comes with it, and you basically have to keep adjusting that to try to get it as clean as possible. The biggest difference is, the biggest hindrance is when you go back, you get basically no back motion because of these legs. You can kind of get them out of the way to the side if you want to get them to go back, but you just have to deal with this kibble, which is this leg kibble, which is really, really unfortunate and probably the biggest design flaw of this figure. He does have nice friction joints going out, and again, you do get some obstruction from these dino leg hinges, so you can go out this way, but you can't turn it that way. Not that you probably will do a lot of poses like that, but just to let you guys know. He does have a thigh swivel. He does have nice knees that go 90 degrees. And the feet are actually quite nice in some respects. So it is on a hinge that comes out, and it's on a ball joint, so you do get some motion. But unfortunately, if it came out just a little bit more, you would get a lot more range of motion and use of that ball joint. Right now, because it hits the side panels, you don't get a ton of motion, but you do get some forward and back, and the heel and the toe are on separate pieces, so you can mess around with them in order to get some more stable stances when you pose this guy. As far as the wings go, the wings are really nice. There are two major sections, but there is a hinge here that allows you to go basically further than 90 degrees. And you can go forward until you run into some obstruction. It does have a post here that allows you to rotate it out some before, again, you get into some interference with the shoulders. But you can also rotate it outwards. Just a slight bit, well, again, probably like 15-20 degrees, not a ton, but it is quite nice that you can do that. The only thing I'm concerned about is possibility of this little piece here. It's kind of thin in some areas. It feels really solid and tight, but I find myself just being careful with it, just because it is one small piece with 2 points of articulation and some thin areas that would have me a bit concerned. It feels solid, but I would just be careful if you get this figure. So the tip piece can move all the way back. It can't lie flat, unfortunately, because it does have some interference. And it can move forward about 90 degrees. So I kind of like how that looks when he's had him, the way I had him earlier, with his wing kind of accordioned into like a zigzag design. I think that actually looks really nice. I do wish the wing folded back, but unfortunately that is not possible. And I'll get these guns out of the way just to show you that they can be removed, but also there's some articulation here. So there's two small cannons that are on one piece that can rotate around and have 360 degrees of motion. And then there's also claws that can hinge up and down and are also on a separate piece. I'm going to see if I can get it out. There we go. So it is on a separate piece, so if for some reason you don't like the claw look, you can take it out. The one thing I will say is that I wish that the cannons maybe were on a separate area, because these kind of get all clustered together if you want to make use of both of them. Unfortunately, the claw base isn't on a hinge, so you can't, it's always going to be at that angle with the wing. So that's about it for articulation in robot mode. But like I said, I think his robot mode is quite nice. You get a lot of posability with the wings, a lot of options, like so. If you want to do kind of a follow Cybertron look where the wings are pointed back and up, you have that option. His articulation in general is pretty good. The only big flaw is with these alt mode legs and their connection to the hip there. And that'll be a reoccurring theme. And since we do have Dinobots, and it seems to be my last few reviews have all been about Dinobots, let's go ahead and bring in some comparisons. So the first one that you will think of is obviously the Hasbro Grimlock, and this is the reissue. I just brought him out just because he was the easiest to get out of my storage. But you can see he scales quite well with the original Hasbro Grimlock, and I think that's what they're going for. A lot of the other third-party companies are going to be doing a full line with a new Grimlock for their figures, just so it scales well with them. But if you want one that goes with the Grimlock you already own from Hasbro or Takara Tomy, this is the scale or the line that you're probably going to want to go with. Okay, the colors are a little bit different, but that's again because the lighter gray on the reissue. But overall, I think they look really good together. Nice molded detail. It's pretty consistent. It is actually a little bit more detailed and a little bit easier to see the molded detail in this figure, which I really like. Also bringing in another Dinobot is a fan favorite, Scoria. Fans Toys Scoria, or their Slag, and you can see he's quite big, and depending on how you like your figures to scale, this might work for you. So this might work for you. You may want Swoop to be a good deal smaller than the rest. I mean, he really should be, just in terms of the size of the alt modes, but in terms of their robot modes, they were all pretty much the same. He was a little bit shorter, but not that much. So it looks pretty good together. And just so you guys can have an idea of what he looks like with the Scoria boots, the Fans Toys Scoria boots, I'll bring those in as well. So he doesn't look terrible, but I think you guys will kind of appreciate this size comparison I have here. All right. Getting these guys out of the way until I need to transform them for alt mode comparison, we can go back into robot mode review and go into accessories. So you saw the accessories from the intro. He comes with 3 accessories. 2 are the cannon/missiles that I had originally pegged in, and they peg in using 2 pegs and corresponding slots in the wings. They peg in right there. But the cool thing about this is that it's really nicely designed. It's nicely molded. I like that it has this like red molded piece, which makes it look like you can shoot it out. It's not actually shooting action, but it gives the look that it could be. And you can actually unpeg these if you want to make it look like one was fired or not. This is kind of nice that they did that. I don't actually know if that was a design choice or if that's just easy to pull off through the assembly process. This gun does have a handle that you can pull out, and that one small peg actually becomes useful in his alt mode, his robot mode, to peg into a small hole in the back of his hand, which is an very interesting design choice. I don't actually agree with it. I actually find this is much harder to peg into than the side of the hand or into the palm, as most companies do. It pegs in pretty solidly. Obviously, I don't need the fingers to go in, but to hold it. But it's hard to get support into it. It's easy to put your finger behind a palm when you're pushing something in. It's not when you're pushing directly into the fist, which is, again, just a weird design choice that I guess it's neither here nor there, but I don't really agree with it. I don't think it's a really smart design. The sword itself, you can see here, is modeled after the original toys, and unlike Grimlock's, which I'll bring in really quickly, it's not clear, it's the metal, but it does use the same kind of design cues with this, nice chrome red. And again, it has the peg on the back that you can use to stick into his... Yeah, see, I just don't think, it's just not easy to peg this in. Not that it doesn't peg in well, it's hard to get your hand positioned to allow it to get a secure connection. There, I'm just gonna leave it like that for now. But overall, I think it looks quite good. I guess the sword is a little dinky compared to either Grimlock's or especially Scoria's, which is quite huge, probably too huge, honestly. But it's not bad, and I like that it's actually chromed out. All right, so that's it for robot mode and accessories. I'm gonna go ahead and transform this guy into alt mode, and it's pretty easy. And if you have any of the Seekers, like I said, the whole upper body is very similar to the Seekers. Oh, actually, one thing I should mention is that on the back, the official transformation for this guy is actually to kind of fold him up like this, fold these legs up like this. I don't think this is a really clean look for him. I think it looks much better to have it rotated around and up, so he doesn't have kind of like a junk in the trunk thing going on here. But it's really up to you. All right, so going on to transformation. The first thing we'll do is actually to slide up. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. You have to unpeg the beak on either side. And then we're going to slide up this entire top upper body. So that allows the beak to come out, but you can basically pull up the entire upper body. And it's kind of hard to tell when you've gotten all the way up. Okay. Next up, you're going to rotate these panels all the way around 180 degrees, so then the red parts are at the bottom. And then you're going to rotate this up. Actually, maybe we should get rid of the arms. Well, here, you rotate this up. Okay, so very much like Starscream. And then there's these small pieces on the front that are on small hinge that you rotate downwards, which is kind of hard to do because they're small, but you rotate them down and you can see they reveal some detail. There we go. All right, with the abdomen, you want to push out the ab pieces so that they align with the rest of the chest. And then they're on double hinges that you rotate up. And again, very similar. They definitely took this straight from the Hasbro Takara Tomy Starscream. And they peg together up top. All right. Next up is you're going to actually deal with the arms. And the shoulders shoulder pads are articulated in that you can pull them up and down. So you rotate them down, and then you actually push them in. Like so. Okay. Oh, actually I made a small mistake. You actually have to rotate the arms outwards like this first, so that you see the screw holes. And the reason for that is you're going to do the same thing with the arms, fold up the fists, and you're going to rotate them down. I actually like to rotate them on the wrist so that they're like this, so you don't see the fingers in alt mode. Rotate them like this, and then these shoulder points come in on the hinge. The entire arm comes in like so. And there's actually a little bit of a small ridge here that has a corresponding tab in the piece in the back. So it's kind of hard to see and kind of hard to show, but you'll feel it when you peg it in. So that's when you know it's correct. It's actually all the way against the back. See here on this side, it's not pegged in, and you have to like kind of push it upwards to get it in because it's actually quite high. And since you can't see what you're doing, it's actually just kind of by feel, and that's pegged in. Okay, so don't miss that piece. All right, so now we're done with the upper body. The lower body is pretty simple. So you want to get these wings kind of rotated out of the way, and you want to bring the feet in and tab those into the sides. Rotate the feet down if you had them positioned the way I did. And then this entire hip piece will rotate backwards. But before you do that, you actually need to fold down the backpack. These pieces, which don't actually tab in, they have tab pieces down here that have corresponding indentations, but they don't actually securely tab in. They just kind of sit there. So you rotate those flat down, and there is a peg that tabs into place into that gray section. So those actually tab in. And going back to the front, you rotate the entire hip, not just the leg, the entire hip backwards 90 degrees. And then you deal with the feet. You collapse the feet and then slide them in. Okay? Then a slightly complicated, not really complicated, but you just need to know it. There's a tab on this black piece here that has a corresponding tab in the metal backpack. So you want to actually slide that in first. And then once you have it securely in, you push down on this knee section here. And that tabs in, to secures the tab at the bottom. Sorry about that. So again, on this side, just to explain it one more time, after you bring the backpack down, close the heel and the toe, slide it back in, and then rotate it up. Get that black tab into that metallic section slot here. I'm trying to do it without obstructing the view, but it's really impossible to kind of see. So get that secured up and then push down on the lower, on this knee section here to get it all tabbed in. If you did that correctly, everything should be pretty secure. Oh, the fist came undone. So again, I really don't like the use of posts here. They should really use some kind of pin to secure that in place. And making sure that's tabbed into place. That's tabbed into place, the arms. And then we get the feet coming around front and you position them however you really like to do. Doesn't really matter. You have options. They're actually pretty tightly pinned in, so you can keep them, make them flat, or you can actually get them to sit up on the claws. To show that off. So you can actually have him, see he's on his toes there, or you can have him sit flat if you'd like to do that instead. You have options. Okay, and there we have him back, well not back, we have him in alt mode. The only thing that you have an option to do here is with this sword, you can actually give him a tail, and the Pteranodon does have a tail typically. So what you're going to do is put the handle in this slot in the backpack, and then there's a small ridge there that these two, or indentations, that these two ridges on the sword, again, don't peg into, but they kind of sit into in conjunction with the handle. So if you put the handle in first and then press it down, you'll hear that slight snap. But that's actually not pegged in, it's just basically getting that position correctly. And then as before, you can peg in the guns. Just remember, if you had in gun mode, you just slide this forward, and that allows you to peg these into the wings. And I actually didn't, oh shoot, I didn't actually do it before. It just kind of happened, but officially you need to push the head obviously into the beak. And there we have Airstrike in alt mode. And he looks really nice, guys. Just overall, I think he looks nice. There are a couple things that I don't like about him. So getting into alt mode review, these colors kind of like stick out and it's really boxy. I don't love that. Even from the side, he doesn't look particularly great here. But that's kind of to be expected. Any kind of bird or flying alt mode always kind of suffers from the fact that it would be nice for them to be a little bit more rounded, but it doesn't look too bad. I really don't understand the use of these flaps. I mean, I don't think much of a difference exists here except for hiding a little bit of that red piece. From the side, I think he looks really good. Can I zoom out anymore? No, I'm basically out as far as I can go. So in terms of the side, he does have a nice profile. I love the look of the beak. This one, I should point out that this beak did come damaged when it came shipped to me. But obviously they said they were actually increasing the tolerances here to make sure it doesn't split. But it looks quite good in alt mode. So here's this profile view. There's a rear view, pretty clean. You do have these extra dyno mode feet down here. And then this profile, again, looks quite nice. And the one thing I didn't point out earlier is the wings, because I was gonna talk about the details in the wings in alt mode because it makes more sense too for me. The wingspan is pretty massive. Try to get them all the way in frame. And just to give you an idea of how big it is, I'm actually gonna bring in Talon from Mastermind Creations. Their dive bomb, and the wings, as you can see, are about the same width, about 18 inches in width when fully extended, and that's still really nice. That's a lot of chrome going on there. It does have a decent amount of articulation, as I showed before. It does have some nice paint apps, so they didn't just chrome it. There's some paint apps, small details on the back here. I'm gonna move this out of the way, it just gets in the way. And paint apps on the wing sections here, blue wiring, red details. So it's nice that they went the extra mile to actually paint the chrome as well. Again, the wing articulation is going to be the same. The only difference in articulation here is really going to be the head, for one, which is on a hinge. It does have a gap there, which is a bit unfortunate. So it can look all the way down, but it can also look really far up and even extend almost straight back so that when he's flying, you can see where he's going. And then the legs are the only other piece of articulation. So he does have a really nice range of motion here. He can't go any further forward than that, but he can go really far back. His knees have some range of motion, so you can't get him to go straight, but you can get them to fold up almost all the way back. And the talons, if that's what you want to call them, the back section is on a separate hinge than the front, and they're these are die cast, so that's nice. And then it has a thigh swivel, which can go all the way around, which I showed before. All right. And again, the claws up here and the guns up here, you can do whatever you want with them. I wish, when you have these missiles pegged in, that's one of my complaints, like everything is going on in this area here, the claw, the cannons, the missile. I wish they had maybe gotten rid of these guns or put them in another position so that not everything was kind of colliding in this mass gun claw section there. I wish the head did have more articulation. If the dino head could turn in some way, that would be really, really nice. But overall, I think this is really nice in alt mode. I think I prefer the alt mode more than the robot mode. But just give me a quick second, and I'll come back and bring in Grimlock and slag to do alt mode comparisons. Alright everyone, we're back. And let's do some comparisons in alt mode. We'll bring out Grimlock from Hasbro, their recent reissue. And we'll bring out Scoria. And you can see these guys look quite good together overall. I mean, they obviously are a bit different. Scoria's gold is a lot richer than the Hasbro reissue or the Bullsfire Airstrike, but they still look quite good. The chrome obviously matches. Some of the details are slightly different, like in terms of the gray, the blue colors here, but they look quite cohesive, even though they're from 3 absolutely different manufacturers. But I think you'd be pretty happy with having the Airstrike as part of your Grimlock or your Masterpiece collection, since again their plan, at least from what I understand, is to not make their own Grimlock and really just scale and design towards the existing Hasbro one. I don't think you'd be disappointed to have these guys together either, but it probably would make the most sense, obviously, to go with one company for all the Dinobots, or at least as many as you can. Alright, so let's get this guy out of here, as well as this big lug. And one thing I did want to talk about, because this guy does use the Seeker mold, Hasbro Seeker mold, and actually still has this kind of in-peg piece here, I was really hoping that that Bullsfire had designed it so that you could take the Seeker flight stand and make use of it, but unfortunately you can't. It doesn't reach in there, and because of this kind of hook piece that was supposed to latch into an area of the chest piece on the Seekers, it doesn't work, unfortunately, and that's pretty disappointing. I think that would have been really clever of them to have that have this mold make use of that. It might not have worked either, just because it's so far up on the Seeker on the chest piece of the alt mode that it might not have supported it, but it would have been very cool if that were the case. I really would have enjoyed that. Alright, and the next step is to get this guy back in robot mode, which is just the opposite of what we did before. So I think the easiest way to start is to go around back and unpeg these legs. So you're going to want to pull up on the knee joint again, and that will release the leg. So same thing on this side. Pull up on this knee joint here, and that will release the leg. And now you can stretch these out. Zoom out a little bit more now. And then you can pull down the feet and split the heel and the toe. Okay. Before you keep rotating everything to the back, you're going to want to unpeg these back pieces and rotate them up. Like so. Get these wings out of the way, and you'll be able to rotate the hips down and detach, unpeg the dino legs that come around back. And we're going to leave these here for now because you're supposed to fold them up, and I'll show how to do that, but if you do that now, you might get in the way of transformation. So let's go back to the front. So for the upper body, it's pretty simple. One of the things that I always forget to do is to rotate these pieces on the front up. A small detail that I have forgotten, so I've shot this video numerous times now. With that done, rotate the shoulders out. Okay. You're going to split the chest down the middle and rotate outwards and downwards to get them down to form kind of the side pieces of the abdomen. And right now, what you can do is also the sliding joint on the front of those pieces, kind of narrow the ab area. Okay, so slide those down. you're going to want to unpeg the dyno head and rotate it down. Oh, sorry, you're going to want to rotate these chest pieces down first. So rotate the arms up, rotate the chest pieces down first, rotate these red pieces, the ones with the red paint, rotate those down. Then you have to rotate the dyno head down. And you need to rotate the dyno head down first before you do that sliding mechanism, okay? So now that you have that dyno mode head down, you can slide the entire upper body, kind of shoulder area jetpack down. And just be careful. You want to get kind of an even push downward. That'll come all the way down. So that's why, again, that I refrained from folding those legs up at that time, because they might get in the way of transformation. So once you have that all the way folded, slid down, you're close to being done. You can rotate the arms, the hands down, and rotate them outwards 90 degrees. To deal with the shoulders, there's this very specific order that you really need to do this in. So there's 3 positions. There's this kind of compacted version. Slide that out, then slide that up, and then rotate. Okay? So again, on this side, slide it outwards. If you can. This one shoulder on the test shot is kind of finicky with me. Rotate it up, and then rotate. Slide it up, and then rotate the shoulders. Okay? And just make sure you have it slid all the way up, so that it's kind of in line with the blue pieces. And that will finally allow you to rotate the biceps and get him all kind of situated there. Lastly, again, the official transformation for these legs is to kind of close them up, rotate them up, and then rotate the knee down so that they kind of sit off the butt. I don't really like it that way again, but we'll leave it for that for now. Oh, I'm sorry. The one thing I failed to do around the front is once you have the beak down, there's tabs on the inside of this blue piece, one here and one there, and that has corresponding small tabs in the side of the dyno mode head. So slide those down and just like rotate it slightly, and they'll just nudge into place. And with that, we have swoop or airstrike back in robot mode. Peg these accessories in, and we'll go on to final thoughts. So I really like this guy. I think he's a really good first attempt. He feels really solid. The plastic quality is really nice. I like the use of die cast. I like the paint apps. They're really clean paint apps overall. There are a couple areas on this test shot that are going to need to be finalized. And there's some areas that weren't fully painted yet, but they will be painted on the final version. But overall, I think he looks really good. I love the molded detail. I think that he is kind of worth a buy, especially if you want to keep in scale with your existing Grimlock. The only downside that I see from this guy is the fact that he's smaller than I would personally like. But again, it's really up to your collecting needs and this part of the transformation. So it was a design choice by them to give. It was a trade-off between having really nice alt mode legs, dyno legs, or using these kind of weird fake ones here as dyno legs, and those always look kind of goofy to me. So I'm really torn whether they made the right choice or not. If they were able to find something else to do with them aside from hanging off the hip and butt area, so that when you move this thing, these follow along and then create some gappiness there. If they found some other way to solve that problem, I think this guy would be a real winner. As it stands now, I think it really depends. A lot of people like what Fans Toys have shown from their Masterpiece Swoop. I think, again, it's going to be up to you. and your collection needs as to whether you want to buy a new Grimlock or not that will scale with the rest of the Dinobots, or if you want to buy Bullsfire and be assured that they're going to be in scale with your existing Grimlock. The downside of that being, frankly, you know, Grimlock is out of scale. It's not part of the new Masterpiece scale, so your Dinobots are going to be out of scale with all of the basically MP9 moving forward. So my opinion is that it's up to you. I know that's a non-opinion, but it really is up to what scale you want and your collection needs. But in terms of transformation, in terms of quality of paint apps and of plastic quality, I think they did a really, really, really good job for a first attempt. I don't have too many complaints again, except the legs, the smaller face, and the weird way that the guns and sword peg in. And to a lesser degree, these hands, how they connect. I think they could have done a little bit better there. But overall, I think this is a great first attempt from Bullsfire, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do besides the Dinobots. If they do just the Dinobots, I think everybody will be happy. But I really want to see them take on some figures that will be a bit different and kind of show off their versatility. So that's it for today, guys. I want to once again thank Toy Dojo for sending this over, and Bullsfire for allowing me to do this test shot review. And if you like Bullsfire's Airstrike and want to add them to your collection, you can pre-order them from Toy Dojo using the link in the video description below. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section as always. If you like these reviews, please give them a thumbs up and hit subscribe. I think that's all for today. Everyone, have a good one.